Hello, good people, and welcome to the Amateur Hour. My name's Justin,
My name's Tyler.
and we are, we're here for our second episode of the season. And it's fantastic to be back. It's wonderful. Nothing to worry about. Things are feeling nice. Things are feeling smooth. At the top of this episode, I do want to thank our sponsors. Of course, what can I say? You're in the mood for some popcorn and you're local to the Indiana area. Why don't you drive up to Cedar Lake and get some Kelly's Kernels? They also offer other exclusive wonderful treats there. So if I were you guys, please check them out. You're driving around in the local area of Indiana and you're getting hungry, even for dinner. Just go to Kelly's Kernels, okay? They got you covered. And if you're looking for some other entertainment to watch other than the Amateur Hour, us, I hate to brag, go over to the Grim Reaper if you want to watch some gaming on Twitch. Twitch.tv/The Grim Reaper for all of your video game needs. He streams, I believe, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 6 to 11 CDT time. So you guys be sure to check them out. And as always, we love our Adam Stone, so check him out as well. He's got a new song, Do Your Friends Know? Do they? I don't know. It's a really good song. Check it out. But okay, let's get into it. Let's get into topics. I mean, I got some questions here, right? Mainly for Austie, because Tyler, this doesn't pertain to you, okay, man? You're taken, all right? You're taken. You're off the market. That hunk of man is...
I'm just doing it right.
That hunk of man.
That hunk of man is taken and has a child. So, Tyler, you're off the market, so this question isn't for you, right? This piece of man meat has been sold.
There's already too much bromance in this episode.
Tripling down on the meat stuff right now. Okay.
He's just yeah, I'm gonna go along with Tyler's thing here. He's the bromance is what can I say? I'm in love. No, I'm just kidding. But anywho,
We're at max level.
Justin's describing you like that can of like that big old package of like hamburger meat at the store that you just like look at and you're like, I have to buy it.
yes,
That's what it sounds like to me.
on sale. No, I'm just it's it's about to get old. The day. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
It's the last one left. You're like, it's exclusive. Gotta have it.
All right. Me and I was just saying, me and Austie are a couple of salamis ready to be picked up in the market.
I'm a can of Spam. Come get me, ladies.
So, we're on the market. Well, actually, I can't say
Yeah.
that anymore, but
Yeah, dude. I was about to say, what are you talking about?
I'm spoiling things. Let me get forward to the question before I keep getting into supermarket etiquette over here. How did you feel, right? Because the pandemic went by. How did it affect your dating life? Like, what happened? Because I know it affected me. So, I mean, I want you to sort of put us in the scenarios, kind of run us through how it kind of made the dating life for you, and yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of made it almost impossible to date, I feel like, unless you're really into meeting girls online. So if you're like people listening like Tinder or Hinge or all those apps, it might not affect you too bad, but for me, I'm more of a meet in person kind of thing. And obviously that wasn't happening. It's also like kind of hard, you're out doing stuff and everybody's wearing masks and you're like, you see a girl like across the room and you're like, is she cute? Like, can't
He's
see
got
her
good looking
mask.
eyes. Oh God, put the mask back on.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm not shaming anybody, but like, sometimes, smile is a very important thing. Oh, and if she's missing 6 teeth, I don't know. don't know if you guys like that necessarily, but I prefer dental hygiene. So, yeah, it's made it pretty tough. And also just like some of the people you'll talk to, you'll be like, "Hey, let's do something." And they're like, "What about COVID? What do you just want to like talk on here forever?" Like, eventually we got to meet if this wants to go any further. So, it makes it really tough, especially since you can't like there's not a lot of stuff to do, like concerts were getting canceled and stuff. Oh,
I could see that. Because I mean, I'm the same way. Obviously, I'm not on the market as Justin said, but I would rather be in person, actually getting to see and know the person. And, if you got to make sure you're being safe. So that's a whole nother struggle. And then, of course, let's say you don't trust the person yet or whatever. Now you got to do more talking through like texting or some social media app, whatever the case is. And that stuff's just weird to me. So I totally agree.
oh, dude, I hate talking to girls on like text or whatever because it's like, no, you can talk, but eventually like it gets to the point like there's nothing else to talk about. And then you get to that once you get to that point, then if you haven't met in person yet, if you then meet in person, it's like, well, what do I ask them? I made that mistake a few times while I was in college. I would just like go crazy texting and then meet them and I'm like, I don't know what we can talk about because I know everything already. Uh, how was your day? And that's when you know it's not going to go well.
I
Like,
would say the only exception to that type of style would be like video gaming kind of stuff. If like my cousin, he does the live stream stuff with video games. If
mhm.
you meet someone on there and you're like in game and everyone's super active, I think that's one of the better times to talk to someone because they're already being more open than they are on a regular basis. And it's a little bit more fun. Whereas when you're on Facebook and you're just on Messenger texting away, there's no sense of, am I nervous to answer that question? Because did they just not see your message yet? Or did they see it and then they're like, because you can't see the face, you don't know what the real true reaction is. Well, whereas if you're on stream or whatever, sometimes you're talking, everything's happening in real time. You get a better perspective, but still not the same at all as if you were doing
Yeah.
it in person. But it's a little bit, I think it's a little better that way. And plus, if you're that type of person, you're already probably, at least a chance of having a better match because that maybe shows that you guys have the same sort of, I don't know, interest,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, I mean, I would compare that like with the pandemic. I almost think like, I'm sure there's plenty of like people that have met online or something that like some of their dates, quote unquote dates, because they didn't want to go out and do stuff, was like getting on and playing games together or something. Like, uh,
Yeah,
I
I would
wouldn't be
still want to
surprised.
like schedule a time to still see this person
Yeah.
like in person, but I think that's a little bit another step up from just messaging, at least.
Yeah. What you're describing is basically like when you go on a regular date, like you're bowling, so you have something else going on, so it's not like
Right,
you don't
exactly.
feel like you're not focused on, oh, how do I answer this? You're just trying to bowl a strike here, but also I'm going to answer your question. And you're probably going to get better answers out of people in that situation too.
More natural answer, I would think.
Yeah, they don't like sit there and try to think it out and second guess and third guess themselves.
It's not that answer like, let me take 15 seconds to start typing my message so I can make sure it's what this guy wants to hear. You don't
Yeah,
get that kind of stuff.
there's been plenty of times where I'll be talking to a girl and next thing you know, she'll be gone for like 2 hours, and I'm like, it's almost hard to pick back up the conversation where it left because it's like, well, I've already moved past that. Like, I don't know, just think it's much easier to do all that kind of stuff in person because of this ever continuing pandemic that just keeps trying to creep back in on us. I was always the guy though that like, I mean, in high school, went to a small school, so I knew everybody, but once I got to college, it was like I'd meet people through people, and then we'd like hit it off, and we'd start talking, and then all that stuff. And with being able to hang out with friends and meet their new friends and stuff like that, definitely makes it a little more difficult.
So the dating life itself is already a minefield, you know, on its own. And when this whole pandemic happened, I mean, at least for me, like you were saying, there was a lot of aspects of it that kind of like threw, I think, threw everybody for a loop, right? Like it made people more reliant on, dating apps and social media. But I think in terms of like let's say you being forced to go online, it made at least approaching someone easier, right? Because like in person it's always like super awkward, right? Like you never want to ask a girl out sometimes like when she's working. Like there's nothing more awkward than like maybe seeing like a pretty waitress and you're like, you know what, I want to go on a date with her. And you have to go through that just level of how awkward it's going to be when you ask her out on a date and she's working. Like,
Or
you're
if she's
like,
got a boyfriend
yeah,
already too.
or if she's got a boyfriend already, right? Like, because you never know the status. And it's like, you don't want to be rude, but you also want to sort of take charge and be approachable, right? And
Well,
like,
here's
you
a question though.
go ahead.
If you never know the status, what website are you on? Are we just talking like you hit a girl up on Facebook? Or because if you're on a dating site, shouldn't that imply the status?
I think
Yeah.
we're talking about like in person
Yeah, but we're
when
talking about
you're.
like yeah, I'm sort of so far like going on the level of meeting in person, right? Like the struggles of
Oh,
how
okay,
that
got you.
goes first. Yeah. But going through that is it's a little bit difficult, right? Because you don't want to be rude to you're not over here trying to hit on a chick who is a guy. But then at the same token, like, so you don't know, there's a lot of already unanswered questions. And then you don't know how that person's going to be. Are you going to get their number? Are you going to get their social media? Are they going to ghost you? Let's say, even if you go through that, past that level of fear of like, should I ask them? Then it's like, what's the answer, right? Like, it's either a no, a yes, and then there's just like so much that goes into it. And then after that, then you got to think what type of date to take them on. So there's like all these different levels, and now you sort of take all the personal level, experience away, and then you just go strictly to online, or yeah, and that makes things like super difficult because it's either that or you're playing the guessing game with the masks, like
Yeah.
Austin was saying, like you decide like, hey, I think you're pretty cute. She like removes her mask for a hot second, missing like 8 teeth, and you're like, bruh, you know.
She breathes on you, and it's like, oh God, I'm dying.
Smells like death and decay.
Is this what COVID smells like?
I don't
you
see the
know.
mask thing is weird. Since I've been wearing a mask, you're forced to smell your own breath once in a while. And I typically brush my teeth, I floss a lot, I do all that stuff. But then when you put the mask on, like let's say you just had lunch and you put your mask in, you're like, ugh, this stinks in here. So I like always put a piece of gum in my mouth, or sometimes I'll come home from work and I'll brush my teeth just because I've had that mask on. So I wonder, is the mask gonna make your mouth hygiene better or worse?
Oh,
Maybe it
I,
depends
I
on
I
the
would
person.
assume it should make it better, right? But who knows? Maybe it
For
no.
me,
ferments.
I'm thinking about it more. I want to clean my mouth more. So that's why I'm thinking better. But other people, I mean, we know we have people out there with that attitude where I just don't give a shit. So maybe theirs gets even worse because I know when you're wearing the mask, you're not letting air flow as much, and that actually builds up more bacteria.
Yeah,
So
probably
maybe
for
worse.
people who care, it'll be better. People who don't, it's going to get 10 times worse because you're basically just recycling relatively the same breaths over and over again. Like there's still particles from it in the mask.
Right.
And germs that were attached to all that is coming right back into your mouth. And it's just like
So
it's like sitting there drinking water, spitting it out, drinking water, spitting it out, and just like over and over again.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I think I have a good question for you guys because you guys are in the dating world. When you go onto these sites, like I don't know if you guys go on dating sites or if you just use Facebook, whatever. When you go to these places, before there was always the chance of you found a picture of a hot girl and she's really active and she wants to talk to you. And then you find out that it's some type of scammer. It's a 40-year-old dude that's like messing with people or trying to do terrible things. Do you guys have you noticed or do you feel like that has gone up? Is it happening more often or do you guys even experience that?
I remember.
I don't really mess with the apps. Now I do know when I was in college, you can kind of tell. It's kind of like, whenever you get a Facebook request from some random person and it's like they just created the profile like a day
Yeah,
ago.
like
All
it's
of their stuff
brand
was
new.
like, yeah, it's kind of like that. You could kind of tell it was like rushed and not very
Okay.
much thought put into it. Because I don't know about you, but I always put a lot of thought into like Facebook, all that stuff. So like you can tell pretty quickly.
Right. Well, the reason I asked because very recently, actually, every once in a while I get a text message. A picture of a pretty girl shows up on my phone in text, and then all of a sudden it's like the next message that comes in, "Hey, I'm back in town. Well, we
Yeah,
hung out last time, whatever." So I'm just thinking, okay, if I'm not in the game, not have no interest at all, and I'm getting these random texts, what do you guys see when you're online? Like looking around, maybe trying a little here and there. Like, do you guys see a bunch of craziness like that, or is it still just once in a great while?
I'd probably say once in a great while. I
Okay.
don't really I now that I'm not really on those apps or mess with them, like mainly Facebook. I'll For a while I went through a phase where I learned my lesson quickly was if somebody requested me as a friend, I just accept it. I was like, I probably know you from somewhere. I'm in college, I know all these people, and I'm not necessarily sure like who I really do know or don't know. So it's like I just accepted everybody, and there's plenty of
I feel
fake
like
accounts
Facebook
with
you're
friend
probably
requests.
a little bit safer on because, like you said, if you're in college and you know all these people, and then someone else is on Facebook and it always says people you may know, some people just say, "Oh, yeah, I remember his face," and they'll click the button. I feel like it's much more common for negative things to happen if you're on. I don't know why, but people say Twitter is more dangerous or Instagram is more dangerous for that kind of stuff.
No.
I guess I don't know if dangerous is the right word,
Mhm.
but
Well,
definitely the dating sites, the shady places. I
Yeah,
don't know if
so
you guys ever spent any time on
I
those.
did.
was just gonna say on Facebook, the way I learned my lesson was a girl friend requested me. I accepted it. And then she proceeded to tag me and a few of my friends in this nasty post about like what we did to her the night before, and it was like very sexual. And my grandma saw it and all this stuff. It was bad. It's really bad. It was like think of the plot for a corn scene. That's what she basically wrote in a Facebook message or a Facebook post and
And it
tagged me
probably
in it.
wasn't even true.
Oh, it definitely wasn't true. I didn't know that girl. I had to tell one of my other buddies. I was like, "Hey, this thing happened," because my grandma was the one that saw it, and she was like, "Oh my God, why is this girl posting this stuff about my grandson?" I was like, "Grandma, I
And then the
swear,
next
I
time
don't know
you
who
see
this
your
girl
grandma,
is."
she's like shaming you. What did you do, Austin?
She
What
called
did I
my mom, and
say?
my mom called me and was like, "Austin, who is this?" And I was like, "I don't know." I had to real quickly do damage control on that, get that off my page, and blocked her
Oh
and all
yeah.
that stuff.
So yeah, I mean, I got some answers about all that stuff, but let me get back to my setup, right? Let's get a little sidetracked, right? But yeah, so you have all these difficult things, right, about meeting in person. Then now we get into the online realm of things, right? Like where you have to now worry about if you're not a person of conversation, holding a conversation through text. There's a lot of variables that like go on through this, right? Like you could either now here comes the nervousness of do you cold message somebody on like Facebook or Instagram or whatever sort of social media platform, right? Or do you get on to dating apps? And so now we're in the realm of digital, and you're kind of like forced to digital to date digitally, and you got to make the first move. Now, I think I want to start with dating apps because we are just talking about that. A lot of times that can be very annoying as well, right? Because like you're all there, right, for the same reason. You got the swipe rights and the swipe lefts,
Either you're
and
trying or you just want something.
yeah, so like there's a lot of now layers that get into that. Okay, like how detailed are you gonna get into your post? What pictures are gonna use of yourself? What makes you seem friendly, right? And by the way, I have a percentage for people who are on both Bumble and Tinder. About I think it was 90% of the population on those apps are men. So if you're a dude looking for a chick, you don't really have options, right? Like you only have 10% of the population that is on there is just women. So like first off, you're already at that disadvantage, and second off, now you have to impress, right? Like what are girls looking for? What do they want? You have to be very thoughtful in terms of your bio and kind of get to the point, but also be interesting, which is super weird. And the navigating dating apps is hilarious, right? Because there's all these girls have the same sort of posts. Like it's insane. Like right, guys have to be so creative, but it was like chicks, like who cares, right? Like you would always see the same thing. I like adventures. First off, just because you went to like the store or you're like, hey, let's go to like Starved Rock or something, that's not an adventure, right? That's just, you're going on a little trip like this. Like, I'm like, enough with this word adventure. Like, every single profile I had seen is, I love adventures. I drink, I this, I that. And it was like the same things, like copy and paste it. It was beyond annoying. So you have to get past that. Then you got to match somebody. When you finally match somebody, is it a random account? Normally, there are tells. For example, like you'll have one, there'll be one picture, no freaking, bio attached to it. Or the bio will be very direct and like luring, if you kind of know what I'm talking about. Like, hey, I'll sleep with you. And you're like, okay, it's probably fake. All right, swipe. And so like
Looking for
there's this
FWB.
tell. Yeah. Or yeah, or FWB. And it's like, to be honest, also, a high percentage of the girls that are on these apps, it's not just to sort of smash and pass, right? Like, we're just like, a minute to, get the shalami, and then like move on. Like, no, it was like, you know, most of them go on there with more intent than actually most guys. So you have that layer to sort of get through, right? And then there's a layer of when you match. When you match, now you got to make sure that this person is real. I have a process, right? I'm like, yo, give me your social medias, both Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And then I make sure I video call the person. Like, there's no way I would ever try and attempt a first date without video calling, because even voice calling, right? It could be somebody that is just like being very weird, or there's also a certain aspect that you can run into where it is a girl and a chick, and but she has like intent to like rob you with somebody else. Like you never know, right? Like people are crazy. So there's all these different aspects now that you got to worry about. So again, it's almost like dating in real life, but except now it's digital and you have less proof. Like there's that like whole level of mystery. And yeah, and then even cold messaging somebody on Facebook, it's almost the same things you have to worry about. And then holding up conversation. What do you say? What's the next thing? Like Austin was saying, like, what are you gonna talk about the weather every day? Like, oh, how's the weather out there? Like, in
Oh.
especially with like this generation, right? Like, I feel like it's very hard to hold the conversation. You try and talk
Mm.
about something, and like their attention rate is like so little, like where they'll just disappear, like after an hour or something, like having conversation with you. Like they'll just be like, boop, they're just gone, and then they start messaging you again, or like they'll get too bored of like maybe you're like, I don't want to ask the hard hitting questions, and I want to like work my way up and into getting to know them. sometimes like they just get bored of that. Like I don't know what to say, and
Yeah.
I could just at least say from my experience, right, and like my accounts in terms of dating. So yeah, dating in in the pandemic was kind of rough. I had the
Yeah.
fortune of having a relationship, someone I met online. I dated them for about a year. Things broke up, right? And then I went back online, right? And through awesome and crazy good graces and fantastic sort of way things like worked out, I ended up meeting my current girlfriend online, and she's absolutely fantastic. And we talked for a whole month before we got to see each other, which was really awesome. I did the video chats, right? I did my due diligence in getting to know the individual, and sometimes you just pull the lucky straw,
And then
right?
seen her for the first time, and it was a man.
Oh gosh, no, she very much was a whoa man, huh?
Was a whoa man.
And it was absolutely fantastic to get to see her. She lives a whole state away. It was what can I say, one of the best experiences. Sometimes, like I said, you just pull the you find the needle in the haystack, so to speak. And I don't know, I'm happy how things worked out. I'm happy where things went. But
So
dating
I
in
have
the
sort of a
pandemic
quick
was
question.
definitely absolutely insanity. But what was your question, though?
It's just a quick one. So you mentioned she lives a whole state away. What do you do when you get to the point to where like all of a sudden it's serious and now you have to pick, do I go to her or does she come to me? I feel like that decision is going to be a hard one.
So you mean
Uh,
in terms of like, all right, like this chick is gonna be, my forever, right? Or this individual, so to speak, is gonna be it? Are you talking about that, or like,
I think he's talking about so like when you first go to meet them in person. I think the answer to that question is like if that is your question. I think the answer is like you as the guy you kind of have to go to them
Well,
almost.
well, no,
yeah, you gotta be
I'm
chivalrous.
talking in the future.
So in the
Like
future,
when
I
when
don't
you
know.
when you decide you're going to tie the knot, you
Okay, all
know.
right.
I think
So
it would
like
be like,
one of you has to leave a family because you're a whole state apart.
yeah, no, that I mean that is a true question and a tough question. I would say that for me personally, um, I would want to meet. I don't know. I would want to meet somewhere in the middle. Like where it's like we're kind of in between families, right? I mean, she's a whole state over, and it's not somewhere like too far. So I would
Yeah.
like to like be somewhere like directly in the center, right? Where and
Or
then you
is
got
it
to think of
something
like
like you
work,
just
right?
fully invite her in and then you just like go visit her family often?
I
You
think
know?
it I think it kind of depends on your situation. Like where are you at in life? Like for example, I have a really really good job. Say I meet somebody lives in Arkansas and she, maybe she works at Walmart or she's going to college or whatever and she like we're dating and then we decide we want to like move in together. She's like just graduated college, so she's like kind of can go anywhere type of thing. Then like yeah, I would probably want her to come more towards me. But if say she's got like an established career and like she's doing really really well and it's like for example like a graphic designer, like you kind of need to be in a bigger city to really make really good money doing that. She's in that space. Like I'm an accountant, so I could theoretically just move there, get a job. I think it just kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah, I agree because like let's say for example I start working in Chicago, right? And let's say I live somewhere in Indiana. And let's say I live in Kelly's Kernels in Cedar Lake.
You live in
Yeah, I
the
live there.
store.
So if you want to come visit me, let's say
That
I'm
keeps
living in
making a
Kelly's
segue to our
Kernels
sponsor.
right now, and you want to come visit me and eat some popcorn. They have 68 flavors, mind you. Um, and I'm sort of in between, and the person lives like a state over. I think that meeting somewhere sort of in the middle, right? So that way it's like close enough where she can see her family and maybe also close enough where I can go to work. I think that's really important too. I think I've lightly had that sort of discussion in terms of like what we would do, and it's like our future jobs of what we would want to do kind of like offers us up to like move wherever's best for work. So
Yeah, and
there's
that's what I
also
was
that as
asking. I
well.
feel like you have to know that early on
Yeah.
because
No,
it's gonna be long term. I mean, if that's something you can't overcome, it's bound to fail. So that's what I was really asking. Like,
yeah, no, like
what do you
these
do in that
are
situation?
yeah, these are questions that I know I personally I like to ask early on, right? Like I sort of discuss these things with somebody, especially living in a distance. Like it's, I mean, you because you don't want to jump too ahead, right? Like you don't want to think future right away and like freak the person out, or you don't want to jump to future in terms of like because you never know where the relationship would go sometimes. But sometimes you just know, right? Like you have a good feeling, right? Like for example, I have a really good feeling about this relationship. So it's like I very much handled my bases of like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is who I am. This is important. This is important. Yada yada. To think about, right? Like these are stuff
And
that.
I feel like that's a really good starting point if you're the type of person that can just right there, boom, this is what I'm looking for. If you don't like it, it's not going to work out. I feel like if you can break that barrier right away, you're probably going to have a much better start and probably a more reliable connection with the other person too. So I feel like that's going to be, you're being super blunt. That's how I am. But I feel like that's the right way to do it for
Yeah.
a lot of situations.
Yeah, I think most relationships they end up stepping into, how would you say, like rather than discussing, right? Like, and I had this talk with my girlfriend the other day. It was like, rather than there's normally like layers to it, right? Where you're like, oh, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Type of thing, right? And then you sort of start slowly getting into the seriousness. And
Right.
I'm a person like I don't work that way. I jump into it, right? Like I'm just like this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Okay, bye. Like
Well, and right, you want to know all the little stuff. You want to know all the simple stuff. Like you have to start somewhere because you have to be like, do I actually like this girl? Do we have the same interests? Do we click at all? Like you have to do that first. Otherwise, why even try to do the serious stuff if you're not even clicking, like you're a mile apart, you know? So you have to do the simple stuff first, but I feel like the sooner you can break that barrier and be like, yo, this is who I am, this is who I'm looking for. If it's not you, I mean, you're wasting your time and her time. You're wasting each other's time. So I feel like if you can get past that barrier early, it's probably better.
yeah. That's
You know?
that's how I work, and I hope that the dating realm out there kind of works that way too. And it's like, again, I feel like the sooner you could sort of answer these questions, and especially if you personally have a good vibe, right, for the person, or like in terms of like you have a good feeling about them, and you just know, like I said, sometimes you just know, and you're like, this feels right. If that is the case, I'd suggest to anybody out there that's currently in a relationship, make sure you're covering these bases of the things that are most important to you. I think another thing is that's kind of important that I don't know, like jumping into the relationship world in general, despite pandemic or not, that is important that I also give everybody the same advice is, make sure you have your bases of like maybe list 5 things that are important to you. And once you have those bases of those core values that are super important that you want that special individual to have, first, like a serious relationship, that is, you don't like settle, right? Like if they don't have like 2 of those or they don't have like 3 of those, don't be like, oh, well, like those don't matter.
You're
Like,
gonna
no,
settle, you're gonna always compromise. And if you're
it's
always compromising, it's almost like you're always in an argument with each other.
yeah, it's like you need to have a level of like these values that are important to you, and you gotta stick by them, right? Because I feel like if because you know what's best for you, So you know if that person has like a family value or like, again, what things that are important to you. If they have that, then you know that it probably, if they can meet all those expectations, that probably tells you what that type of person is. Because to be honest, right, not everyone's going to meet everything on that expectation list. But if you can have that and you do find that, it is absolutely phenomenal. And you know that that relationship probably is for you. And that's like a good starter. So I'd like to encourage people to sort of have those just five core values for you that are important, and try not to settle. Because when you start to get in that mindset, right, of just like, oh well, I'm just gonna take it, right, I'm gonna take it rather than leave it type of thing, then you just end up in such like horrible situations where you just in relationships that are kind of just dead end, right? Like, that they don't have what's important to you, but you're just like, or you start to try and change the person you're with. And I think that also, you never want to get into a relationship trying to change someone, because it's not going to lead you anywhere. You're just going to end up failing in that relationship. So those are my 2 cents, right? Take the advice if where it may, leave it. Either way, I did think this was fairly interesting to sort of discuss, and maybe we might revisit this topic, because we're just talking about more or less the how it was dating in the pandemic, and kind of short story is like, yeah, it was kind of difficult, and it's a new venture to go about. But it's good to be safe. It's good to be considerate. Make sure you're not getting catfished, okay? For those of you who are dating online out there. And make sure that when you're going into conversation, you go into it with some meaningful intent. And take it like you're talking to that person in real life. And yeah, maybe we might talk about relationship and other stuff in maybe in the next podcast or podcast after that. But we got to go a break. We're kind of a little over here. I hope you guys enjoyed so far. Enjoy these words from our sponsors. Enjoy high-octane gaming with the Grim Reaper live on Twitch. Watch the Reaper as he plays through a plethora of game titles, such as Call of Duty Warzone, Call of Duty Zombies, Valorant, Minecraft, and more. Join him as he competes against high competition in COD Warzone tournaments for large cash prizes. You can catch the Grim Reaper streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, 6 to 11 p.m. CDT. Just search twitch.tv/The Grim Reaper. Link in the bio. Looking for a fun new way to eat popcorn? Then I have the place for you. Kelly's Kernels has 68 flavors to choose from. Try out their delicious birthday cake flavor or their cheesy cheddary flavor. If you want to go classic, the Chicago-style flavor is for you. Either way, you have a wide variety of flavors to choose from. But that's not all. They offer other treats such as shaved ice, cotton candy, and mini melts. Be sure to enjoy the dine-in experience and bring the whole family. So come on down to Kelly's Kernels, where it's always poppin'. Located at 13226 Lincoln Plaza Way, Cedar Lake, Indiana. Link in the bio. And we're back from that word from our sponsors. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, a huge thank you to Kelly's Kernels, our first local sponsor. So I hope you guys enjoy. Again, you're in the Indiana area. I would suggest going to Cedar Lake and checking out Kelly's Kernels. They got 68 fantastic popcorn flavors, as well as a few other tasty treats. So it's not just popcorn there. So if you guys want to enjoy a plethora of treats, check them out. And if you're looking to watch some gaming, some streaming, on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 6 to 11 CDT, you'll be able to catch the Grim Reaper slaying out on a few games, or maybe having a nice, relaxing, passive stream of Minecraft. Either way, go check him out. He has some great content. And hey, be sure to follow us on all social media, and please subscribe and or follow If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell and give us a like and drop some comments in there. We want to hear from you. How was? I'll throw out the questions later. But with that said, let's continue on. We got some wonderful tech news. We're on the tech half of the podcast, so to speak. Um, we have video gaming in China. So, as of recent, China is actually restricting the time that people can play video games, whether you're young or teen. You're now restricted certain access and the length of which you can play video games. So, as far as I'm aware, you could only play 3 hours a week. Was that? I believe I was hearing something along the lines of 3 hours a week. It was like from like 8 to 12 or something like that. It was like a very short time span. And China sort of implemented this rule in order to cut back on video game addiction because apparently it was kind of rampant out in
I
China
feel like
in the
in
mobile
China it
gaming
might actually
industry.
be a problem. Because China has a lot more like mobile gaming, a lot more cheap hardware. China's more techy. So I feel like it could be a problem, but I had to intervene like right away because that time frame, I don't game a lot and I'm a gamer because I usually don't have time. I always have to do something else. That's way less than I game, and I wouldn't even be able to game in that time frame.
So I need to cut in real quick because I read articles about it and like Chinese language to English translation of one of like a newsletter talking about it, and it's from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Oh my goodness.
Thursday, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You get those 3 hours only to play. So if you don't play those 3 hours, you can't play that week.
So what are people gonna do? Like, hey boss, I need to be able to play my game. Like, I won't make it until 10 today.
Well, it's people under 18.
Yeah, it's
So
for
if you're an
eight.
adult, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think it was for teens. You still have a restriction, so it's like, yeah, it's from child to teen. You have, and you're most of these like sort of games as a service or online games, you're gonna have to put in your age, and from there, the game is actually going to restrict you and kick you off after those hours or not allow you on.
So crazy. So are parents not doing their part in China? I mean, this sounds like a parenting thing.
Well, I don't
Well,
know because I mean you could say the same for the U.S. It's just I don't know. The government out there very much is into lots of regulations and lots of you know
I know there's people out
yeah.
there all around the world that are just like, if they leave their computer from gaming, they'll have a breakdown. Like that's a thing, and it's probably a problem. When I'm on a computer for 3 hours, I just tell myself I just need to shut this off because it's too much time at that point. But when I get a new video game, yeah, I might put 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours in it in the beginning. But then there's some days like I'll go a week sometimes where I won't even touch it. So I guess it depends on the person because I know there's people out there that if they get on the computer, like they don't stop. Like they're on there and all of a sudden they've disappeared from the world. So I can understand why they feel like they need to implement it. But I'm thinking like, okay, if you're a parent and you're not saying anything, maybe that's why this governmental rule is taking effect. It's just weird to me. I feel like that's a weird thing for the government to say this is how it's going to be. I don't know.
so the articles I read, a lot of it is one like so the Chinese people like they're some of them like it, but the majority are like this is an invasion into family home because it's the government telling you what you can and cannot do in your own home. You know what I mean? And
Right.
like for me, like the thing is it is not on the government in my eyes. Now this is China, which is like completely different. But like say the United States tried to do something like this. It is not the government's position to tell us what we do in our free time so long as it's legal. So if I want to sit on a game for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, I can do that and mess up my own psyche if I want to. Like that's on me. Like there might be somebody else who does like something like that. There's plenty of kids out there that stream and make money off of it. You're affecting somebody's livelihood. And not only that, but like over in China, Japan, a lot of the Asian countries, like competitive gaming and for money is like huge. So how is that going to affect that as well? Because you've got like League of Legends, all those MOBAs or whatever. Like there's tons and tons of the OWL. Like a lot of them are from Asia. Like there's more than just one level to this. Like to me, somebody wanting to play like 3 hours a day on as a hobby playing video games is no different than somebody going outside for 3 hours a day and know creating a birdhouse. Like a hobby's a hobby at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that like you were saying, and I totally agree with this, especially this part of what you're saying is like, as long as you're not harming somebody and it's legal, I think that they shouldn't really have no say into a person's personal life. Like, they should just leave them alone. I think that can gaming addiction be a thing, and should it be restricted? Maybe for younger ages, right? Like I could understand maybe to like I don't know, like you're 12 years old or something like that, right? Because
I
I
feel
think
like it should be something
stressing,
closer to like drinking, you know?
I think,
When you have a drinking problem or a drug problem, there's places you can go to get help, like gambling. You can get help for gambling problems. If there's a bad addiction or something like that in China, I feel like it should be handled the same way. I just don't think it's right for like what Austin said for them to step into their personal life, like in the house. You can't do this in your own house for something so simple as video gaming.
but in
Yeah.
terms of
And
like their youth and like their education system, I think that if you want to be a leading edge country, you really have to push education, right? I feel it's very easy, especially nowadays with tech being so readily available, that if I feel like to an extent, right? Like this isn't 100%, my belief, but I believe that if the parents, I believe first off, the parents should regulate their children in terms of playing tech, being on tablets, watching TV, because a TV as a child's babysitter and all that stuff is not going to really help the child's mindset, right? And there's also
right,
studies that show, right, where watching too much television and being, how would you say, exposed to too much screen time, a lot of times like you're gonna have a lot of different flares in the mind, so to speak, that are going to stimulate certain areas of the mind too much, so where it can affect your learning, your memory, and all this stuff. So actually, gaming for long
and
hours is
we
not really good for you. But I think that they have to start sort of, if they regulated it for children, like I said, to a certain age, I think that would have been okay in my eyes. But if they're now regulating like preteen, adult, I think that is kind of ridiculous. Because, I mean, to be honest, it's a form of stress relief. It's a way to get out. It's like watching a movie, reading a book, a TV show. However, it's a form of getting out and just breathing, right? Like you're just stepping into a different universe. You're not worrying about what's behind you, what's to the left of you, what's to the right of you. You're not worrying about the next bill you have to pay the next day or the next day of school. Like it's time to just relax. And I don't think
right.
that
It's your
government should
disconnect.
have that intervention.
Yeah, it's your disconnect. When I come home from work and I do the same thing every day, and I'm super duper busy, and I come home and I play a video game for a couple hours. That's my disconnect from the world. Like, let me decompress and not think about whatever the hell all day. But I feel like over here in the US, our teachers, part of their responsibility is to make sure that the kid is getting everything they need to, everything they need to learn. And their other responsibility is the reason they give homework is to obviously keep their mind going on learning to keep it active, but also, when you go home, let's say, because it's out there, you're one of those kids, you have the parents that just don't really care. Maybe there's a drinking problem at home, maybe there's a drug problem at home, and the parents aren't really doing their part. Then the school has to be the one to step in to say, this kid never has his homework done. His grades are going down. Why? And then they have to ask, do we intervene? And then they send someone out to find out what's going on with this kid. It usually starts with having a parent come in with a parent teacher conference or something like that. So if video gaming is that much of a problem, I feel like in China for the younger generation, your elementary kids or your middle school kids, I feel like that would be a responsibility of the school systems if you want to focus on school and if this is how you want to reduce the gaming. This is that type of responsibility. It just doesn't seem like a government mandatory option for me. I feel like that's the wrong approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like facilities like for drugs and alcohol. In China, they have facilities they take people to. You could be of any age. It costs like they broke down the breakdown of it. It's like basically $1,700 a month, and you go to this like place kind of. I didn't specify where, but I'm assuming it's like out away from big cities, and there's no technology at all. Like no phones, computers, nothing that resembles technology. You're in a building, you got your like basic, you got electricity, but like if you want to read, you got to read a book, an actual book, not if you're stuff that you would do, say like pop machine or something like that. It's not the technology. Like it's you have to make the pop, like all this stuff. It's like bare bones. You're going back 50 years type of thing. And they like it's supposed to basically be a treatment because they're saying that it's not just it's just like the Chinese population in general just have a huge addiction on technology, which makes sense because I mean I feel
When
like
you become so dependent on technology, it can be damaging because there's people out there that will use a calculator every time they need to do math, and they're using a calculator for something that's so simple as 3 times 9.
yeah.
That's
I
to
think
that extent where you just need to be able to realize, like, yo, you need to be able to function without technology.
yeah. And
So
I think that like there's a certain level that every human being has to hit. And then once past that, like there's some stuff like technology is just the one way more efficient and two like you can still use it, but as long as you understand like the method behind it, then you're okay. Like somebody who's doing like my brother-in-law's a medical physicist. He understands like ins and outs of it, but to do all of his simulations, he has to use technology to use it, stuff like that. Like there's a certain point where you hit like, do I spend 100 years doing this simulation or do I let my computer do it overnight type of thing? So it's like it's a double-edged sword because the thing is for example in China, say they end up doing this for the entire population. And at that point, like what about jobs? If your job was you're on your computer like working all day, you no longer like are you able to do it for work, but then when you come home you've used all your hours of being with technology.
Yeah, I mean, you could only limit it so much. I think,
Exactly.
I think with this generation for sure we have to take it upon ourselves, and I think we have to self-regulate essentially how much we're on tech, right? I feel every so often we have to sort of take a step back, take a step away from the screens. First off, it harms your eyes, and second off, like you said, it does affect your mind. There's concrete studies and evidence. Yes, video gaming and other sort of screen time is not good for your mental health. So do your own research later in the day. I'm sure you guys will end up finding articles on this stuff. Trust me, a lot of studies are out there. So in terms of that, I mean, you could sort of take a step back and look at all that stuff. But I think that us as a society and people, we have to take it upon ourselves again to step away from tech every once in a while. I personally, I love to video game. I could play video games for an hour, a full day, just hours upon hours of video gaming. But every so often, what I've been doing as of, not as of recent, but of like as of recent as of like a whole year, I'll literally take a step back. I'll nap. I'll read something. I'll just literally maybe spend time with my dog or spend time with my family and just step away from tech. Because I think it's important to not overindulge, because anything that you overindulge is always not good for you. Like, you always have to take a moment to breathe, get away, let the mind rest, because it's like I said, in the later run, it's not going to be worth the mental issues that you might have. And who knows, right? Like, we have a lot of depression, right? As of recent, I've noticed, right? Like, a lot of people get diagnosed with depression, like chronic depression, all this stuff. I wonder if, right, and this is just a theory, right? Like, does possibly too much tech have an effect on our mental status in terms of depression and stuff?
Hmm.
Because, and now you got VR coming up pretty soon as well, where it's like this sort of hyper realistic way to play video games. And at least I remember there was a study that was the possibilities of how that can actually cause PTSD. So there's there's a lot of ways to look into tech and how bad it could be. So my advice to people at home: take a step back every so often. If anything, like, you have such wonderful things like audio podcasts where you're not going to be having to look at your screen for maybe an hour. Listen to something in the background. Listen to music. Listen to, again, the Amateur Hour podcast. Well, you
Well, yeah,
well, you
going
sit
off of
back.
the mental thing, like what about these kids that have all these friends online and they're now separated from them? Is that going to cause those kids to like, is that going to cause more depression? You know what I mean? Like, is the solution going to cause maybe a bigger problem?
I think
Um,
that's another parenting thing, because if you're a kid and you have your parents bought you an Xbox, there's so much parental control, at least on Xbox and everything, that you can set up that a lot of parents don't set up.
yeah.
So if your kid's 10 years old, he or she does not need full access to everything that console can do. Like, you should be able to accept, your parents should be able to say if you're going to accept friends or whatever, because okay, you live in a neighborhood, there's 10 other people in a neighborhood that you go to school with. You can actually see these people in real life. Maybe 5 of them have an Xbox. That's who should be on your friends list. What shouldn't be on your friends list is 25 other friends from God knows who, where in the United States, across the world, or whatever, because that's kind of going to start that problem where you just mentioned. Now, mom says, I got to turn my Xbox off, or, oh, the Xbox broke, but we can't afford to fix it. Some weird like that. Now that kid's like, I can't talk to this person. I talk to him every day. Well, because you shouldn't have been allowed to do that. Because now when the Xbox is broke, you should be thinking, oh, well, let's go outside and ride my bike. Let's go talk to my actual friend that lives a couple blocks down the road, and like be a kid and not isolate yourself in a room with a mic.
Yeah, I kind of disagree because all some of my greatest friends that I've made in my life were on Xbox when I was in middle school. You know, like what you're saying could apply to somebody
I'm
who's
I'm
like
talking
10.
like a 10-year-old. Middle school is entirely different.
Yeah.
But this law is like for everybody up to the age of 18, so we need to make sure and specify what we're talking about when we talk about it.
When
But
when
like,
you're super young, you don't understand how to control that kind of stuff. When you're 15, 16, up in there, you start to understand a lot more. You that's when you really need to be branching out. That's when you need to be building your social skills for everything like that. But I feel like when you're really young, that's when it's damaging when you're playing M-rated games, when
Yeah.
you're getting a bunch of this other stuff that, like a 10-year-old shouldn't be telling me to fuck off on GTA.
Yeah, like there definitely is
That's damaging.
ratings for a reason. you know?
So I feel like the parental control when the kids are
Yeah,
really young is really important. But when you're in middle school, like you just said, I feel like that's completely acceptable because that's when you should be learning how to branch
socialize.
out.
Yeah,
That's when you should be meeting more people. That's when you're really getting your social skills that you need as an adult. Let's say you build those skills now. Now you're at your job. You're an adult. Now you know how to talk to different people when you're at work and you have to call another department or you have to call another company and you have to set up a meeting. You learn skills like that from when you were a kid doing things like that. But when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, it's really dangerous to do stuff like that. And I mean, in my opinion, it's damaging. And, you start to learn that things that aren't really okay feel like they're okay because that's what your 20 friends on Xbox that you don't even know what their face looks like are doing.
yeah. It definitely is the regulation of the parents that I think parents at a young age, right, have to make sure that they're monitoring their child. And especially now, right, we're going to start having much more crazier catfishing and all this stuff that it definitely is a topic of another time. Is going to be important to make sure you're watching your kid and making sure that they're safe and okay and that they're not overindulging in tech, but also and know how to themselves self-regulate. So it
Mhm.
definitely is, I think, relies on the parent. In terms of the government, I think we're all in agreement that I don't think a government should say what you do on your leisure as long as it's not harmful and not against the law, you know?
At the
But
end of the
with,
day,
go ahead.
also I said at the end of the day, it should be all on the parents. The government shouldn't have to step in.
I agree. And with those final thoughts, we are actually at time. We got some more topics for you guys next week, the following week. So we're gonna have a lot of interesting topics. Again, I would love to remind everybody we're only doing 3 episodes a month now. So every three week 3 weekends we have a new episode, and then we take a break, and then another 3 episodes. So be sure to be like aware of our how do you say, our scheduling, so to speak. So make sure you guys know that that's our new schedule. Again, 3 times a month. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the word from our sponsors. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Come back for some more. We actually want to hear from you as well in the comments down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, I know you can comment also on SoundCloud. Make sure you leave a comment. So, what do you guys think? Does the government need to regulate? Do you feel like they should intervene? How is the dating life in the pandemic for you? I would love to hear all about it. Leave just drop a little comment down below. Make sure you subscribe, follow us, and like us on everything. Linktree is also in the description, and everybody we affiliate with is in the description down below. So be free to follow, like, and subscribe to all those individuals as well. Thank you so much. As always,